Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Inner Peace, Better Health. I'm your host Sana, and today we have an extraordinary guest who's going to share his transformative journey through the power of feelness. So, listeners, please welcome Mark E. Firehammer. Mark is the co creator of Feelness, a revolutionary approach to movement and personal freedom that helps people maintain independence and avoid the devastating costs of long term care. At 60 years old, listeners, Mark overcame several physical challenges through Feelness and he's now pain free. His mission is to empower others to reclaim their physical freedom through simple, focused movement. So, get ready for a fun, cool, and engaging conversation that will leave you inspired and enlightened as well. Mark, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you, Senna. And I'm thrilled to have been invited. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I like that you set this up as a fun and cool conversation because isn't life in general fun and cool when you think about the journey opportunity we all have together?
It is indeed. It's kind of, we don't express gratitude every day, but every day is another opportunity have been given to us to enjoy it. So instead of just, kind of going through the flow or just dragging ourselves down, why not enjoy each and every moment, but with a little bit support, guidance, and mindfulness, of course.
Yes, indeed. I'm glad you brought up the gratitude piece. I feel like I was born here in the United States into a culture that right away, even just as a little kid, 4 or 5 years old, I questioned everything. I had a feeling that there was some things that weren't right for me about it, and the gratitude piece um, was a big part of my early observations about the life around me and even the way my family was living. And I had the blessing of a couple of mentors in my late teens, early 20s that taught me something that allowed me to flip the way I thought about time, especially.
Yeah.
And my gratitude for my mentor, Harry Ellsworth, God rest his soul, he passed a number of years ago. But one of the things that he shared with me when I was 21 years old, and he was a very, very successful fellow, lived life to the fullest. At the time, he was probably in his late 50s. He said to me, Mark, I don't want to make more money next year. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. It's probably because you have so much money. And he laughed. He said, no, it's not so much that. It is good that I have what I need to live the way I want. But for me, the world and its opportunities that pass, into my awareness is about making sure that I have time to take advantage of the opportunities of every aspect of life as it's presented to me, and not just the accumulation of wealth and the disposition of that wealth. And to have that in this culture in America, in my late teens, early 20s, changed the trajectory of my life for the next 40 plus years.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's such a beautiful start to this conversation, Mark. Thank you for sharing this.
Sure.
Okay, so now let's move on to Feelness. What inspired you to create Feelness, and what exactly it is, Mark? Because I'm very sure our listeners, they must be unfamiliar with this concept. So
Yes, we coined the phrase because I knew it had to be a word that was completely opposite of what I'd been trying to use. The marketplace offers you solutions. And, again, we're in this culture where we're not indoctrinated into looking within. We're indoctrinated in America and looking for solutions outside of us. And as I got older, and the first time I experienced the feeling of my body not working quite like it did when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, was in my 20s. I got married in my 20s, and I began to live a more sedentary lifestyle, much like my parents did. And I grew up in a family that none of us went to the gym. We weren't athletes. I did play a little tennis, but we lived a sedentary lifestyle. And, when it comes to the effects of that, hindsight is 2020. If in terms of culture, we've learned for 100 years now, we've learned that sitting around all day is really bad for this amazing gift of a body, a human body that we are all given at birth. Sitting around is really, really bad for it. And I felt it the first time in my late 20s, 3, 4 years into my first marriage. And I was like, this is interesting. I don't like it. I don't like the feeling. And in the absence of an understanding about what it was, because I haven't been given that wisdom about my body, I began to search outside of me for the answer. And the solutions were always the same: strenuous, sweaty fitness, and I don't know about in India, but here in America, fitness is sold, and there's phrases like feel the burn,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Feel the burn, or no pain, no gain. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. I'm already uncomfortable. Is this really the only thing available to me to try to get my comfort back, is to be even more uncomfortable? I'm like, this can't be right. Well, I was only 26, 27 years old, and I did what, culture and the marketplace offered me, and it didn't work at all. Now, fast forward 20 more years, I'm now in my late 40s, and I was active again after that first marriage. And so my body came back. And in the moment, I hadn't had the realization, because I wasn't entirely present with what I did for myself when I started moving again, being active in life, just doing a lot of movement, not exercise, not sports, but just staying active and moving a lot. And my body, quite miraculously, came back. And I took it for granted, thinking, okay, it was just a phase, I was too lazy and now I'm not. So I'm grateful, I guess, for feeling good again. Well, now fast forward again into my 50s. And here I began to see the people around me. I went to 3 different high schools. So I have a lot more friends than I would have if I'd stayed in one school. And when I say friends, I just mean people that I know from those days. And you probably have Facebook. We all, have Facebook or Instagram, and we sort of follow along with their lives in a parallel to our own lives. And I was seeing that many of these people, same age, give or take 3 or 4 years, were falling apart at the seams far worse than I was. And I was reminded of the time when I started moving again and my body came back. Shortly thereafter, I met my partner, Katrina Hawley. In a nutshell, she's a quadruple threat, a dancer in college, a veteran Pilates teacher, a veteran Pilates studio owner. She's on the faculty at one of the top dance academies in the country called Hart School of Dance at the University of Hartford. And we became friends and then partners for life. And she's the one that woke me up to the actual technical mechanisms of the human body. She had this ability to look at a person who was out of function, is the language we've adopted. Out of function meaning, oh, when I do this, it doesn't feel very good. And it's almost like a parlor trick where she can say, okay, do this with your arm or whatever the problem is. She knew what body parts were involved. And if they're out of function, you have a negative sensation. In Feelness, we call it oof. Do you know the word oof in India?
No, not exactly.
Okay, here in this country, when you see people, they're getting a little older and they go to get out of a chair. Let's say you're sitting together in the living room. They go to get out of the chair and they push themselves up, and on their way up, they go, oof. So, and oof is OOF. In the Feelness language, instead of judging ourselves, ooh, I'm getting old, right? That person, when I say, oh, Jim, are you okay? Because he just said, oof. He said, oh, yeah, I'm okay. I'm just getting old. And what I learned from paying attention and from listening to Katrina and listening to my own body is that There's nothing wrong with your body. There's a language that our nervous system speaks. That's been
Mhm.
speaking to us since the day we were born that says, hey, you are out of function, OOF. And it's kind of ironic that the word that we say, oof, actually can stand for something meaningful, which is out of function. That's pretty cool, right?
It is. It is. It's, I don't know, it's a coincidence or something, maybe, I don't know. It sounds like some kind of divine connection there.
I totally resonate with that, Senna. I was a musician for 20 years and I've written a couple of hundred songs.
Mhm.
And I think it is no coincidence that the word oof came to me at the point in my life when I was seeking to create a solution for myself and billions of people like me, the non-exercisers, the non-athletes that are hitting their 50s and they're starting to say oof more and more and more and more as they get older. So when I saw that word, it flashed before my eyes. The three letters actually stood for out of function. Thanks to Katrina, she taught me that. And the beauty of Feelness as a system that we can use at any age, but it's especially meaningful to those of us that are, 50, 60, 70 years old and we're oofing all the time, is that instead of looking in the mirror like American fitness, we look in the mirror and we, maybe have 20, 30 pounds around the middle too heavy. And all the magazines and the movies that we see are these very slim and muscular and sexy people, for lack of a better word. And the marketplace makes us believe that if we want to be healthy, we need to look like that. We Feelness sets that aside and says, look, let's go to the inside, right? Because a body that is not complaining is going to be a body that is more present in day-to-day life in every moment. That realization is when it hit me. Feelness has to be about the specific things that we do every day where our nervous system sends us the message. I'll give you an example. There's 9 movement tasks in Feelness, and every one of us does them if we can every day. So the first thing you do, you open your eyes and you get out of bed. Did you say oof when you rolled out of that mattress? Or did it feel good? The next thing we do is we take that first walk, right? It could be to the kitchen. It could be to the front curb to get the morning paper. Wherever that first walk takes you, how did that feel? If you said oof, then that task needs attention. So the rest of the tasks are reaching to a high shelf. For me, it's my coffee beans. The next one is bending over at the waist. For me, I pet the cat. I love my cat. Next, I go back to the dining room table and I sit in a chair for breakfast. How did that feel? After 30, 40 minutes, I get up from that chair. How did that feel? Next, I'm getting all the way down to the floor to put my shoes on. How did that feel? Now I'm getting all the way up from the floor because it's time to go to work. How did that feel? And finally, the last one, here in America, we've got lots of cars. So we look over our shoulder to back the car out of the driveway. It's amazing how many people can't do that once they get 50, 60 years old because they've lost that mobility and they go, oof, right? So Feelness starts with those 9 tasks. If you say needs work on any or all of them, Feelness offers a prescription of movements, not exercises, movements that if you just follow the movements and do them 10 minutes at a time, you read about my relieving my own pain. And for me, it was walking. This was July of 2023, 60 years old. I had plantar fasciitis. So the doctor told me in my left foot. I had a knee pain in my right leg, hip pain, right hip, and lower back pain that was intermittent depending on where I was walking. So we'd already developed the prescriptions. So I said, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Well, 24 days, 10 minutes at a time, 3 times a day, total of 800 minutes if you all add it up.
Mhm.
Everything was fixed. The heel pain, the hip pain, the back pain, the knee pain, everything was fixed. And this is a year and 8 months ago. Still to this day, my walk is absolutely pain-free. And walking of the 9 prescriptions in Feelness is the most consequential. I think everybody would agree. How can you live your life if you can't walk?
Certain. Yeah.
Right? Both of my parents fell and broke their hip in their 70s, both of them. And I'm the youngest of 3. So this was another reason you originally asked the question, why, how did you come to create this? I knew that was the last sign. I was like, there's no way I want to end up there. Because one of the sayings that I like, in fact, this sentence is in one of my songs. The future is certain when the past is clear. And my parents both fell because they didn't move in the 50 years prior to not being able to walk with confidence and to have balance. They broke their hip, and in spite of the fact that they honored their commitment that they inherited from culture, which is to make money, take care of your family, accumulate wealth, and prepare for retirement. Their preparation for retirement meant that all the money that they spent, that they saved, that they saved had to be spent on their extended care. They didn't have adventures in their 80s and 90s. They didn't go on trips with 3 generations of the family. They spent all their money paying other people to take care of them when their wish had been to be able to take care of themselves, which I think every human being would like to. I think the moral of the story there is nobody plans to end up incapacitated, but we mostly all fail to plan not to be. And that's really what Feelness is. It's an opportunity for you to plan not to be limited in your body and to get back to the healthy body, healthy mind. When I move with joy and with pleasure, like when I was 15, my relationship with myself is better because I've done what I had to do to take care of that body-mind connection. But just ask Katrina, my relationship with her, with the cat, with the people I work with the neighbors, all those relationships are better because my primary relationship, which is with myself between body and mind, is as healthy as I can manifest it to be. And to be able to contribute that to society, that this last phase of my working life is, I guess, something really I've been prepared for since the day I was born.
No, the way you explained, I think the most important part of having a clarity is to realize or be aware of the symptoms or taking a proactive action. So the way you explain that, in daily activities, what we are doing, getting up from the bed or taking the paper out or having a cup of coffee or just, bending over, tying our shoes. When we experience a pain or a kind of discomfort, somewhere down the line, it affects us mentally as well. Because I'll be very honest, when I was working from home during pandemic, before that, I was super active. I used to, you know, I used to work, I used to travel a lot, my traveling time was 1.5 hours, so 3 hours up and down every day. I used to feel very active. My body clock was super fine. When pandemic hit and when I had to sit working for almost like 10, 11 hours because, there was no boundaries at that time. Working from home, I started to experience changes. I used to have pain in my legs. I used to have problems getting up from my bed. And when I resumed working, then also the problem stayed. So it was kind of an alarm for me that, this is not good. This is not good at all. So the way you explained all the symptoms related to the daily activities we are doing, I think, that, helps in understanding, for all of our listeners, to realize the problems and then understanding the concept of feelness. So it's a beautiful explanation, Mark.
Well, thank you. One of the things about American language, English, and I found that it's true in some other languages too, but it's particularly bad in English, is we have words that look and sound exactly the same, but depending the sentence that they're in and the context, it has a different meaning. And one of the tripping points that I've found when people first come to Feelness is they associate the word feel with their emotions instead of the actual sensation that the body is, the nervous system is sending you, the sensation that makes you go oof. And I always point out that think about the sensations, listen to your body through that language of sense, not the language of your emotion. There's nothing wrong with the emotions, but you want to just pause for a moment and really listen to the body's voice. And one of the ways that I've overcome that misunderstanding for people is reminding them that as a human being, our bodies contain millions of years of coded wisdom because, you can track back our ancestry, to the sub-Saharan Africa, depending on what science you look at, for a couple of million years. So our bodies are super wise. And every infant born in this world with no help from anyone else, no language skills, goes from lying on their back, a bundle of adorable, can't do anything but be cute. Within 1 year, the coding inside their soul, if you will, inside their body tells them exactly what to do, how to move, to give themselves the physical capacity to then go out and explore the world they've been born into. So in a sense, we've all already done this once. We did it as an infant, teaching ourselves to walk and then run, much to our parents' chagrin. So it's easy to then say, all right, I've already done this. I just don't remember it, right? So now we're returning to the same movements that the infant knew instinctually. Now we're just giving to the user in a prescription. And of course, we use that language because people, especially here in America, are familiar with, oh, I've got a problem, take a pill, right? In this case, movement is medicine. Movement is medicine.
True. Definitely true. Great, great, Mark. Also, how does, when I mentioned about my pandemic story, how does physical freedom, according to you, it contribute to mental well-being?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to go back 30 years. I was on the road as a musician at the end of my career for 5 years. I didn't keep a home. I lived on the road. And people would ask me, well, don't you want to be famous? Don't you want to be famous? I'm like, no, I want to be free. And that freedom for me during those 5 years was a metaphor for my body being able to do anything, anytime, go anywhere I want without limitation. And the van on that journey, the van that I lived in, was the metaphor for the body. And I learned during that trip because the journey was the reason I was out there, not the destination. It was the day-to-day, moment-to-moment. I'm going to be here right now. I'll be somewhere else tomorrow. And I learned to honor and respect the van because without it, I wouldn't have the journey. My body is the same exact thing in life. And for me, it's 62 years old now. I'm exploring more and more and more thanks to the well-being of my body. And for me, learning is the most exciting thing that I can do. And it's, for me, I have to be in motion to learn. I'm not into just sitting still and trying to quiet my mind. I like to go and explore and learn and then take what I learned and put it into my mind and say, what can I do with that? And my mind is healthier because I'm always giving it something important to me and hopefully important to those who can then benefit from what I learned or what I created. And Feelness is the latest manifestation of that. When I was on the road, it was the songs that I wrote that then people were like, oh, that song really helps me to, fill in the blank. I still get emails to this day. My father died and this song that you wrote really helped me through the grieving process. So does that answer your question? The whole body, mind, if I'm happy physically and I can move freely, my mind is free to be happy to do what it wants to do.
Definitely, definitely. And I think somewhere down the line, um, I'm in my 30s and I sometimes I get freaked about, getting old. And I think
Mm.
it resonates with all of our listeners as well who are in their early 20s and 30s. The the concept of feelness and taking some proactive actions in our early age with help of guidance and support, I think we can definitely have a good mental health as well in our 40s, 50s, 60s, or maybe after that as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Yes. Have you seen the documentary, Senna? The Blue Zones, Don Buettner's documentary. It's about the 5 places on Earth where an ordinate percentage of people are living to 100.
Yeah, I think I left 200 Secrets of the Blue Zones, right?
Yes, Secrets of the Blue Zones. That's a brilliant documentary to help people do exactly what you just said. Understand that it is the things that we do and the components of our lifestyle that
Mm.
adds up to the reality of our experience. If you change the way you live, in this case, change from not moving to moving, your body is really smart, millions of years of coding. It says, "Oh, I understand what you're trying to do now. You're trying to get back into function." And that documentary really sets the stage because it's one of the 4 things that all 5 places on Earth have in common is the way they move from moment to moment, day to day.
True, that's true. Good.
Are you still now walking every day to work now that the pandemic is behind us?
So yeah, although my workplace is like 5, 6 kilometers away from my residence, but sometimes during the peak hours when I am not getting anything to commute down there, public transport, sometimes I do walk because I want to test my endurance. If I'm able to walk 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers, let's see if I can do that or not. So, yeah,
Yes.
I do that. I do that sometimes.
Now, I want to ask you a question about your experience after the pandemic.
Mhm.
You admitted to feeling discomfort because of all the sitting. How long did you track it? How much time and how many kilometers total did it take for your body to respond and then restore, well, your feelness, really?
Yeah, it's a valid question. So, if I recollect, this was like 2 years back. Yeah, 1.5 years back. So, for 3, 4 months before the office is reopened, so I was having those problems when I was trying to do daily chores. So, what I started to do is, I decided to, go out for, let's say, groceries, shopping by foot you know,
Yeah.
just to get my body into the daily, routine. So I started to do that. The initial 1 month or the 15 days, I used to have a lot of pain in my foot. I used to not to, I was not able to get up properly. Um, uh, and I was feeling a kind of weakness, but
Yeah.
a month or two I started to get habituated of that. And also what I decided, okay, cooking, cleaning and everything I'll do on my own. I'll try to have maximum physical movement during those times. Let's say just walking around the entire house or cleaning the entire kitchen, maybe cleaning my closet, doing a lot of
Yeah.
activities. So I think that helped to me to a lot, to a huge extent to get my body into the daily routine pre-pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Right there. There's a testimony for Feelness, even though you weren't using Feelness, you were using movement as medicine.
Yeah, yeah. Because
I love that.
yeah, because I owe this to my father. So he's almost 70, 75 years old, and he walks every day. I mean, he walks like 5, 6 kilometers every day.
Good for him.
Yeah, and he says, no, I love walking, and this helps me feel young at this age as well. Sometimes it becomes even worse, when he thinks, oh, I'm still that 20, 30 years old boy. And, but yeah, sometimes it doesn't work in his favor. But yes, he loves to walk, he loves to do household chores. And, I got a kind of inspiration from him that even if you're not going to gym or not doing all those weights and ropes and cardio and blah blah blah, simply walking or doing chores at your house, having maximum physical movement and a good sleep can actually help you in the long run.
Yeah. And another piece of that too is to listen to your body. If you're doing all those chores and you feel something, a lot of people from because they're indoctrinated into the fitness mindset, they'll work through the discomfort, they'll work through the pain. And we've discovered with Feelness, don't do that. The pain is trying to tell you something.
Yes.
Back off a little bit, slow it down a little bit, and wait for it to subside. And you get there a lot faster.
Definitely, definitely. Because you know, I was in my late 20s during pandemic. So when I was having knee pain or foot pain, I realized that, this is not the age to experience this kind of pains. I'm still
No.
young. So what kind of signal my body is trying to give me? That means, either I'm having some kind of deficiency or some kind of problem. So, that kind of freaked me out initially. But yeah, I decided.
Well, I'm glad that all the blessings that you have, including your father's inspiration, led you to paying attention and being aware and saying, "Hey, I'm too young for this."
Exactly, exactly. Well, Mark, and before we wrap up, a little bit advice we all would like to take from you. So, for someone who is struggling with physical pain, irrespective of their age, and looking for a way to improve their mental well-being, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, that combination of pain and mental well-being. I can only speak to my own experience and the experience that I've witnessed in my partner Katrina's business, because she's a lot of people that are suffering physically and mentally because of the physical suffering come to her and they solve the problem. And the uniform, consistent thread is when you take responsibility in your mind of ascribing the reason for your physical discomfort to
Mhm.
something that is solvable rather than ascribing it to something you have no control over, your mind will immediately go to work on it. And that's mental health right there. Responsibility and action as opposed to the helplessness of being the victim of a belief that we inadvertently hold, but it does not serve us. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. If you say I'm getting old, there's nothing you can do. The hands of time never stop. And that's an improper ascription. But if I say, oh, I'm not moving enough, like you said, Santa, I'm sitting too much. I'm going to start moving again. Right there, that moment of responsibility, my experience is my brain gets a lift and kind of leaps for joy because it knows that I'm going to now tell my body to take some action and do something about this. And then my mind and my body are friends again. That's the way I like to look at it. I think this is my final answer for your question, Sana, is if your mind and your body are working together, that's a friendly relationship. That body is a beautiful place. Just like a relationship with your significant other where you're on the same page, you're both pulling on the same rope, so to speak. That's a beautiful place, that relationship. And when your body feels good because you've made it your mindset to do what's necessary to maintain the gift of your body, your mental health is going to, improve dramatically right there.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's such a beautiful message to all of us,
Mm.
Mark. Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course,
You're welcome.
very sure our listeners would love to connect with you and explore more about the concept of feelness with your guidance and your insights, how they can do that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll put some links in the show notes. I'll provide those for you.
Lovely, lovely. Well, Tom, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and what this lovely conversation and also insights with all of us today. I'm very sure our listeners have gained a lot of valuable knowledge from our conversation today.
Well, you're welcome, Senna, and thank you for the opportunity. It's really a pleasure chatting with you.
Listeners, for those of you tuning in, remember that inner peace and better health are within your reach. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to connect with Mark. We'll have all the details in the show notes for you. And also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends, your loved ones. Until next time, keep moving and finding your inner peace. Thank you.